If you'll give us just a second. We'll try this again. Before we go into our next segment of the program, as I mentioned earlier, we are presenting the Hubble Medal throughout the Cherry Blossom Festival. And as the mission of the festival is the preservation of American history, it is important that we honor those who have worked hard to preserve different aspects of our nation's history. And this festival has been very close to the show The Waltons. And many of you do not understand what all it takes to preserve the history of a television show or a movie, which is a huge part of our culture. And so today we present the Cherry Blossom Medal both to Carolyn Grinnell, who you see on Zoom, from Schuyler, Virginia, the birthplace of Earl Hamner, and Carol Johnson, who has taken, first Carolyn started the fan club that has kept the Waltons alive for soon will be 50 years. And Carol, who's gone a step further, who's recreated the Walton House into a bed and breakfast on Walton's Mountain in Schuyler, Virginia. And they have both done everything that they can to keep the legacy of Earl Hamner, the show of the Waltons. And Earl Hamner had a career that was far more extensive than just the Waltons. Falcon Crest, many other things that were a huge part of our culture. So today we present both of them, Carolyn from afar and Carol here today. But I'm going to ask Carolyn Grinnell if she would speak first about Carol, and then we will present you with your medal, and then Carolyn will receive hers on the mountain. If you'll welcome Carolyn Grinnell.
We can't hear you. We can't hear you, Carolyn.
I soon learned that she wears many hats. I've seen her as secretary, as a maid, as a cook, as a gardener, and the list goes on and on and on.
Carolyn, we aren't able to hear you. You may have to start over.
You're going to have to start again here in a second, Carolyn. Just a second.
Don't you love technology?
I'm going to turn you back on. Testing, testing. Okay. So now try.
Can you hear us now from Schuyler?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, here's the presentation.
1, 2, 3, here we go again. When Nicholas asked me to be a presenter of the Edwin T. Hubble Award, my heart was overjoyed when he told me who the recipient was. Over the past few years, I have had the pleasure of knowing this lady. I soon learned that she wears many hats. I've known her as secretary, as a maid, as a bookkeeper, as a cook, as a gardener, and the list goes on and on. and I have seen her all dressed up in her elegant attire as we have made plans to go out for the evening. Years ago, this special lady had a special dream, and like Earl Hamner Jr., she dared to dream big. Today, because of her pursuing those dreams, Walton fans around the world are recipients of their dreams coming true. What she continues to create and do on Walton's Mountain is an inspiration beyond expression. Today, it is with much joy in my heart to say, Carol Johnson, you are the recipient of the Edwin P. Hubble Award for 2021. Thank you for all you do in keeping the legacy of Earl Hamner Jr. alive. We all love you. Mwah.
Congratulations, Cole.
Thank you.
If you return the honor.
Okay, Carolyn, I sure hope that you can hear me, and I hope everybody else can hear me as well. When I met Carolyn Grinnell several years ago, she just became one of my fast, loving friends. We have done so many things together. It's truly amazing. We just talk all the time, and she's a wonderful lady. Not only did she run the Waltons International Fan Club as the president for more than 26 years, she has been very instrumental in keeping Earl Hamner Jr.'s legacy running, as well as just the Waltons TV show in general. I do have a special surprise for Carolyn today, besides presenting you with the Edwin P. Hubble Award. I have recently just purchased one more piece of property in Schuyler, Virginia, and so soon, before the 50th, which is coming quickly, there will be the Carolyn Grinnell Museum. Do drop in. Congratulations, Carolyn. Much love and hugs to you.
It is with much joy and appreciation that I accept the Edwin P. Hubble Award. First of all, I would like to express my appreciation to the Cherry Blossom Festival Committee for deeming me worthy of such an honor. Knowing what the award represents brings to mind several more thank yous I need to acknowledge. It was in the fall, October 1992. I remember standing on the platform with the Walton cast, the Hamner family, and other Nelson County dignitaries, of which we have two in our presence right now, and a sea of people. Some 5,000 people had gathered there in the parking lot at the Walton Mountain Museum. I can still hear Woody Greenberg as he called my name from the platform with 5,000 people standing around us, and he said, Carolyn Grinnell has started a Walton fan club. Can you believe him saying that in front of 5,000 people? Anyway, a special thank you to all the Walton fans around the world who joined with me over the years to keep the Waltons and the legacy of Earl Hamner Jr. alive. It has been an incredible journey. And also accompanying me on this incredible journey was an incredible man. And that was my husband, Harold, and some of you know Harold. He walked with me every step of the way until he crossed over and joined the Heavenly Choir. And he is sure missed, and he is still loved by all the people who knew him. It is because of folks like this who join hands and hearts with me that I have the honor of accepting the Edwin P. Hubble Award. It is my desire that what we started so many years ago and have accomplished will resonate among many generations to come, and the legacy of Earl Hamner Jr. will continue on through the ages. What an incredible journey. What incredible friends. What incredible memories. All because of Earl. And Earl, we just want you to know that you will live in our hearts forever.
Thank you, Carol. Congratulations to the two newest recipients of the Edwin Hubble Medal of Initiative. Give them another round of applause. Carolyn Grinnell and Carol Johnson, two very special friends. Congratulations. Congratulations. And I'm going to do an advertisement for Carol. You all need to visit Walton's Mountain and visit John and Olivia's Bed and Breakfast. It was so interesting to watch the cast of the Waltons walk into a live version of the house. And Cammie Kotler said to me, who was Elizabeth, that as she started up the stairs, it was like her muscle memory took shape. And it was just like being on the set. She said, this is the weirdest experience I've ever had, to actually stay the night in the house without there being cameramen or other things moving around, but to feel like we were left alone on the set all night long. So congratulations to you, Carol, and to Carolyn. Our next speaker, I'm so excited, jumping from one of my favorite television shows to the best movie that was ever made, which I believe is It's a Wonderful Life. How many of you have made It's a Wonderful Life part of your holiday traditions? Yeah. Now, if you don't have your hand raised right now, use it to slap yourself upside the head, because it is one of the best movies, really. It's got great lessons in it. Jimmy Stewart's one of the greatest actors of all time. And I'm going to call Carolyn Grimes up on the stage, if she wouldn't mind, who played Zuzu in the movie. Jimmy Stewart's little girl has the most iconic line in the movie, to help me introduce our speaker today. She was so kind to make the recommendation that we add this special part to the festival schedule in the 75th year of celebrating the movie. And before we do, would you say your iconic line?
Daddy, teacher says every time a bell rings, an angel gets his wings. So a few years ago, like many years ago, I was in Chicago and I was doing the theater, and they were showing It's a Wonderful Life. And I did it every year, and I always told a lot of memorabilia and kind of little excerpts from the film and kind of reminiscing about the movie before they showed the film. And one day, this man came along, and he said, look what I got. He had a book, and it was called The Essential It's a Wonderful Life. And so he said, you know, he knew everything about the movie. He did, he really did. So I thought, oh, gosh, that's going to be great. Well, you know, I was really surprised. I thought, oh, yeah, right. Really, you think he does? Okay, well, we'll find out. And sure enough, I met Michael. And he was absolutely the most entertaining fella, and he does know everything about the movie. Well, I got him a couple times, but he does know everything about the movie, and he's a genius. He's OCD, and so everything has to be just so. But his book, The Essential It's a Wonderful Life, is absolutely fantastic. Tells you every little possible tidbit about the movie, It's a Wonderful Life. And it's interesting stuff. So he's going to share all that with us today. So I'd like to introduce him. Welcome, Michael Willen. I'll go.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that. I think I'm mic'd in already, right? Oh. Yeah. Thanks. Well, good afternoon, everyone. It's an honor to be here at the Cherry Blossom Festival, and thank you so much for Nicholas and Carolyn for those wonderful introductions. This is my first year, and I'm so thrilled to be here to hear all these fascinating presentations and to hear your stories about and connection with the movie It's a Wonderful Life. just amazing hospitality. Thank you so much. And it's a particular honor to be presenting the film today because Carolyn's in the audience. And Carolyn, I've said this many times, but thank you and your fellow actors and crew and production from that movie for giving us such a wonderful gift with all of its inspirational and heartening messages. From the bottom of my heart, thank you very much. So I wrote this book from the heart. The real goal is to share the insights that I've learned along the way so that people can enjoy this film and connect with it on a deeper level. And it's really about passing the film and its inspirational messages down to the next generation, sharing it with family and friends. And that's the essence of how I approached writing the book and doing the research for it. And I get this question asked very often, like, how did you come to write it? And the short and fun answer is Alfalfa Schweitzer, Alfalfa from the Little Rascals. And some of you may know that he is actually in the film. I thought I knew the film cold, and I went to a party where we were talking about and people were sharing their anecdotes in connection to the film. And one of the anecdotes that I learned that day, many, many years ago, was that Alfalfa's in the film. And sure enough, he's in the famous swim gym film. He's actually the scene. He's actually the one that opens up the floor. So I love a good treasure hunt, and all of these threads of stories that I started to learn, including Alfalfa's, led me to put together a scene-by-scene walk through this. There are so many historical tie-ins and curiosities. The set designs are so rich with detail due to the brilliance of the set director, the director Frank Capra, that the film just positively cries out for explanations. And that's what we're going to do today. There's a lot of Easter eggs in here also that are custom to the festival. We've got tie-ins to the presentation before me by Mary Jean Eisenhower, tie-in to the presentation after me by Louis Graziano. We have tie-ins to Marshfield, tie-ins to Missouri, tie-ins to presidential references. So be on the lookout for them. They're going to come fast, and I think you'll really enjoy it. So with this background, let's jump in. And this Santa on the first slide is actually in the film. Only you see him in the opening credits and in black and white. But the good news is we know what colors we should use for that Santa. And I always thought, I want to watch this movie in black and white. I mean, that's the artistic intent. But I always thought, the opening credits are so beautiful, and there's all this beautiful artistry and illustrations. The colorized version of this film, it's the one area where it really lends support to the visual aspects, brilliant visual aspects of the film. And you can see all these stylized fonts, and you can see some flourishes up there and some other illustrations. And it just speaks 1940s flair to me. I just love it. So here he is on Frank Capra's page. So we're going to jump right in with just a fascinating nugget here. 8 seconds into the film, there's a montage of prayers. Mr. Gower's giving a prayer. It's snowing in downtown on Christmas Eve in downtown Bedford Falls. And you can actually see running through downtown Bedford Falls George Bailey in this scene. Just happens like that in an instant. But he's there. The only problem is he's supposed to be running through downtown Bedford Falls at midnight, and it's 9:45 here. And we know that because Clarence says he's got an hour to dress. He's got to be on the bridge at 10:45. So what's going on here? Well, they basically needed an outtake to use for this montage that had snow in it. And they picked a clip from when they filmed those closing scenes with George running down the street. And they just happened to pick up George Bailey, Jimmy Stewart running down the street. Did they know it Did they figure it out before the film was released? Who knows? It's not clear, but it's entirely possible they did know and just figured nobody would see it. Of course, we had the benefit 75 years later of freeze framing that. Okay, here's our first Easter egg. This is Capra's representation of heaven. He struggled mightily with how to do this. He originally started with an idea of having Ben Franklin in heaven, working on an invention and sitting at a desk, and so actually true actors in heaven. And it's hard to pull off. I mean, and he just, my sense is he just never felt comfortable with it, like how to actually represent it without it coming off a little odd. And it's important to him because that's the opening of the film. So what this is actually a celestial photograph, and it's of Stephan's quintet. And there's five galaxies that are in a cluster, and they show up in the constellation, the Pegasus constellation. And there's 2 points about this, how he ended up there. First of all, he was fascinated with astronomy, absolutely fascinated with it. He said in his autobiography that if he hadn't been a director, he would have been an astronomer. And second, connected to that, he had a long and deep relationship with Edwin Hubble from Marshfield. And so I think it's fair to say that he took inspiration from Hubble in where he landed with this representation of heaven. Now, what's fascinating is you have to basically be an astronomer to understand what's being represented here, and that's why I want to shine the light on it so that you can share that knowledge with others. The first main scene is a sledding scene, and I love this scene. It is so much fun. Look at these guys. They're having a blast. They've got skull and crossbone hats. I mean, they're probably in a gang. They're probably skipping school. But I like this shot because it gives you a chance to take roll call. And you can see him up there, but the most interesting part of this, George goes first. He's in front. Sledder 2's never identified, but it's actually Ernie. It's supposed to be young Ernie. It's in the script. They needed to tighten this up. Showing 5 sledders is not necessarily a good use of film time. So they tightened it up. A clip of Sledder 2, Ernie, actually shows up in Marty's sled piece. And we're going to see that in a second. Then you got Sledder 4, which is Sam, and he gives his hee-haw. We'll see that in a second. And Sledder 5, Harry, Bailey. Of course, we know he goes into the water. And then Sledder 6 gets stranded up there, wondering what he should do, and he ends up coming, you don't see it, but he ends up coming down, and he's there to help save Harry from the water. So this is actually the actor who plays Ernie coming down the sledding hill, but while he's doing it, they're referring to him as Marty. But what's really interesting about this slide is you can see in the background a sign, and it's basically a no trespassing sign for Henry F. Potter's property. Okay, totally lost in the shuffle. You can't read it in real time. You can barely read it if you freeze frame it. And the premise of this scene was supposed to be that the boys were trespassing on Potter's property. This was like the first confrontation that they were going to have in the film. And it ended up getting, the scene got cut down and simplified quite a bit. And that's one of the pieces of it that got eliminated. Potter ended up not being in the scene. Here's some of the boys down at the bottom of the hill. There's another sign. No trespass. Okay, Potter, we get it. You don't want anybody on your property. you see this boy with a shovel in the middle. He's got no mittens on. And apparently this is actually in a stage. You can kind of tell from the film, but it's such an expansive stage that you're wondering like how they pulled that off, and we'll talk about that in a second. But apparently he didn't think it was cold enough to warrant mittens while he was down at the bottom holding that shovel. And this is Sam coming down the hill. He's giving his hee-haw. They're establishing his signature hee-haw sign here. He doesn't have mittens on, but it's probably so he can sell the hee-haw sign. But here's what I love about this scene, this shot here. That's not a boy on that stump right there. That's a man. So what's going on here? My answer to that is these boys are engaging in stunt work here, if you really think about it. And that's got to be a spotter at the bottom. So this is the best shot from the film to give you a sense of how large this stage was. And that's Harry coming down. So I'll put it in more practical terms. A football field is 57,000 square feet, and this stage is 33,000 square feet. Okay, at the time it was one of the largest, if not the largest, stage in Hollywood. And I put an arrow to this building over here on the side. It's a little cottage, so that we have a reference for the next shot. Oh, and there's the man on the stump again, down there at the bottom. Harry's about to go in the water, so he better be on high alert. Okay, so on the left is that cottage, and you can tell by that peak above the door if we went back. This main arrow through the middle, that's the direction that the boys sled. And then this house up on the top, that would have been Potter's house had they kept that piece of the scene in. So what you're not seeing is the hill that would have been off to the right. It may or may not have been built during this scene, when that photo was taken. Okay, so now we're in May 1919. So that was the winter. Now we're in May. Here are the boys in downtown Bedford Falls. This is our introduction to downtown Bedford Falls. It's absolutely 100% a character in this film. And it really helps sell the authenticity, as I like to think of it, of the film. You really through downtown Bedford Falls get pulled in, and you never once think that this is anything but a town. Well, it's actually a set. It's actually a set. It's a back lot that RKO Studios owned in Encino. It was called the Encino Ranch. And it was in the middle of farm fields. I mean, nothing was out there. And today there's an expressway going right past the area. But they bought this in call it 1930, maybe a little bit earlier, in connection with a film that they were filming out there called Cimarron, which won an Academy Award. And many films were filmed on this ranch, including Hunchback of Notre Dame. But here, they had this main street, this beautiful main street, 3 blocks, and used for many, many Westerns. And here it was transformed into downtown Bedford Falls. So I love this shot. I mean, these boys they're rascals. First, let's point out the dog here. That's George's dog. We're going to see him twice today. We're going to see him 3 times today. We're going to see him twice more. They're all dressed in baseball uniforms, except for George, because he's going to work. And it's just this hilarious mismatch of outfits, and one sock, doesn't match the other, and they've got mitts and gloves and baseball bat. And then there's two gentlemen in a newfangled automobile trying to get by them there, and these guys are blocking them. They basically own downtown Bedford Falls, right? And then here's a photo of them when they first see Mr. Potter across the street. And they're standing right out in front of the building alone at the time. That arrow's pointing to a magazine. We're gonna talk about that magazine, but check it out in his back pocket there. And I get asked a lot about. There's maps in the book where I reconstructed downtown Bedford Falls, that 3-block area that I talked about. And there's no production materials on it. Nobody ever documented what downtown Bedford Falls looked like. And in fact, it actually changed over time out of necessity because Capra understood, like, hey, we're filming in 1919, we're filming in 1928, and the town evolves. So some of these stores even have to change over time, right? So I thought it would be fun to kind of walk through an example of how I put the pieces of the puzzle together. The answer is an incredible amount of time and effort, scrutinizing scenes, but looking in the background always, trying to figure out store signage. And I can tell you the resolutions back in the day were so impossible that you'd have to play these games to figure out what words were. But eventually, 90% of it we're able to reconstruct with a little bit of help from some film stills. But most of it is discernible through actually looking at the film. So let me just go back to this real quick. So across the street in the background, you can see a garage, you can see a tailor shop, and that's Peterson's Tailor Shop. And I can tell you, this one took me forever. It's not hard at all now, but it's a bicycle shop. It says Liberty Bicycle Shop. So we've already got half a block just right there. Then the boys look, the next point of view shot is looking at Potter coming up in his beautiful carriage. And we get a view of some more storefronts on a different block, right? And so if you look up in the corner here on the left, you can see that it's Gower Drugs. It says Gower in the corner in the window, upper. Or at least says drugs. And then next to it, you can just see the front of the Bijou Theater, and you see these buildings time and time again. But and then a little bit farther down the street, you can see a sign that says Jenkins Art Store. So now we've got another half a block that's come together. Then George goes into the Gower Drugs, and they have a shot looking right out the front door of Gower Drugs. And you can see across the way, it says, I can tell you that actually says Bedford House, but you can see the sign up there. So B&B boarding house right across the street. So this is the map. And I'll show you how the route the boys took, and then we'll show the point of view filming. So this is the route. So from top to bottom, and you can see that it terminates at Gower Drugs, right at the front door. And the first shot is showing them walking up the street. The second one is showing that garage and the bicycle shop that I mentioned in the background. The next one was down looking at Potter's carriage, and you had Gower Drugs in the background, the Bijou Theater, and an art store. There happened to be another store in between that you figure out a different way. And then the next one was that shot right out the front door. Bedford House. So this is a living, breathing set. Now we're inside of Gower Drugs, okay? Inside of Gower Drugs, you would think it would be a set. It's not a set. It's not on a, it is a set. It's not on a stage. It's at Encino Ranch. It's a working set, internal set on that Encino Ranch, on that main street, making use of all of that exterior activity that's going outside the windows. So this is Young Violet and Mary. That's Janine Ruse, a wonderful member of the acting group that is in the film, and she's still going to It's a Wonderful Life festivals, and just has wonderful stories about her memories of being in Gower Drugs. Just pointing out that thermometer in the back, that Coca-Cola, there's all kinds of product placements in here, and almost all of them are authentic, and it's fun to go taking a look when you have a chance, like Pepto-Bismol and Bear Aspirin and multiple Coca-Cola signs. It's fun to go see if you can figure them out. But what I like is this little sign on the mirror in the back here behind Mary. Gower Special, 20 cents. One wonders what that would be. And then there's another one. And I found this one more recently. And I figured out, you can see it's a B, but there's a post in between. And then a little bit lower, you can see it says there's 30 cents, and I could make out another couple of letters there. Well, it turns out it says banana split, 30 cents. Seems a little pricey. I'm not sure. I got to do the math on that. Okay, 3 more Coca-Cola product placements in here. Far right, upper, you can see a sign up there. And then there's a tray in the middle in between them. And then there's a lampshade up on the left above Janine. So here's George Bailey. He's bragging about his National Geographic subscription that his mom probably got for him. But that was the magazine that was in his back pocket. He's got it now, and he's bragging to Mary at the counter. It's an actual National Geographic magazine. And the date, the month is a little off, but it's from 1919 for sure. It's October. And there's the first article that's listed on here says he's talking about the South Seas. He's bragging about the Coral Sea and that's going to the South Sea and coconuts, and how could she not know about these things? And the first article in this magazine is the vanishing people of the South Seas. So there is a tie-in to the South Seas actually in that magazine. There's no doubt that was the reason they picked that month. I had someone at the festival point this one out to me. I have to confess I'd never noticed it. Of all the hundreds of times I'd probably seen this scene. So George scolds Mary for not liking coconuts. She says, I don't like them. Don't put them on my chocolate ice cream. And he turns around and he puts coconut on her chocolate ice cream. And it wasn't just one scoop. So this is in the back room with Mr. Gower. You can see a poison bottle there, and this is when George saves the day. This is the beginning of him saving the day, where he realizes that Mr. Gower is about to make the fatal mistake of putting poison capsules in a prescription. And so you see this label here. It's very handy and convenient for us film watchers. But then he turns it around, and there's another label on the other side. And it's kind of scratched off, but not really. And what it says is it's actually the letters L-Y-C-Y-R, and it's part of the Latin name for the licorice plant. And so the question is, did the prop team like grab a bottle and, not put a label over the licorice part of it? Who knows, but it's just kind of fun to think about. Maybe they weren't poison capsules. Maybe it was just licorice. Okay, another nugget for tying into our festival. We're going to see 5 presidents during the presentation, and this is the first one. And he's the last one I found. But it's Woodrow Wilson. This is, again, May 1919. It's George walking into his dad's office to get advice from him at the building and loan because he just figured out that Mr. Gower is about to put poison capsules in a prescription. And you see this for literally a half a second. There's a little better shot of it. He was president at the time. And then 5 seconds later, we get another one. And he's up in the corner, Washington. That's the only time you see that one, too, and it just goes by in an instant. And I wanted to point something else out here. Look down on the table there. There's a framed portrait, and it's a little hard to see there, but it's a boy on a tricycle. There's a blow-up of it. It's actually Jimmy Stewart. He lent that photo to the film, and it shows up here. It shows up in George Bailey's home at the end of the film, but it's all for this obscure authenticity, which is just brilliant. This shot's fun for 2 reasons. First of all, we get a little look across kitty corner, right? So we're looking out the front of Mr. Gower's drug again. And you see American Florist across the street. And it's got an awning there. But then down here by the door, there's Saturday Evening Posts, and they're authentic. There's the first one, a father and son fishing. And here's the second one. There's a couple on a couch, sort of like George and Mary later in the film. And they're from the right year. They're not quite from the right month again, but they're from the right year. Okay, so we're back out. Let's fast forward now. We're going to 1928. So we went from 1919 to 1928, and here's George. He's about to go on his big trip. So we're back out on the main strip here, the main drag, but we get the benefit of a slightly different view of the building and loan block. So remember, previously we had identified the tailor shop, Peterson's Tailor Shop, and that sign on the far left picks up with Peterson Tailor Shop. But now we get all of the stores to the right of it. And that's the Sentinel newspaper next to the tailor shop. And then a meat market called People's Meat Market next to that. And then Anderson's, which is a clothing store. And then the building alone entrance is right to the left of the Anderson's sign. So now we've got an entire block, the block that the building alone is on. And then Old George, 1928, grown-up George, goes in to thank Mr. Gower for the luggage. And there's some fun things to see here. First of all, the sign in the behind Mr. Gower, it's authentic. There's a lot of cigar and cigarette signage in here. But interestingly, it's for Buscher's Missouri Sweet Hickory Pipes. And I looked this one up, and They're made just down the road in Washington, Missouri. Has anybody smoked a Boucher pipe before? There we go. See this little contraption they're looking at right there? Some of you may have figured it out from the film, but it's a cigar lighter. Just a beautiful piece of machinery. It's made from a company, and that's authentic, made from a company in Iowa. And if you ever come to the Seneca Falls Film Festival, Seneca Falls Wonderful Life Festival, there is a version of that that's true to the film. It's just beautiful to see. And absolutely would be used in a drugstore like that. Okay, and then, again, we're on a set internal to an external set. So you've got all these automobiles and carriages going by the storefront as the scene is going on here. But what caught my eye years ago was there's a barbershop pole right out there. Okay, across the street, there's a barbershop. And then there's that awning for the florist shop. And then we move outside, and there's a wonderful scene with Violet talking to Bert and Ernie and George. And then this is her walking away from that conversation. And we get a nice view of that florist corner. And then there's the barber pole. And then we get the bonus of a call box. That's Ernie's call box. This is actually his stand, and it ends up being his stand in 1945 on the Christmas Eve day scene. He's parked in the exact same place, and you can see that call box. Okay, so let's just go real quickly back to the map and show the perspective. So we were looking out the window towards the florist and the barber shop. We had a view that went back towards the building alone, where we filled out the rest of that block with the Sentinel, People's Meat Market, and Anderson's. And then we had Violet going up the street, where we could see down a little bit down that block. So you can see how you can begin to fill in the rest of it. Okay, so we're in the Bailey house, Mom and Pa Bailey's house now. And we've got a seat at the table. I love this perspective. I mean, you're at the seat on the other side of the table with them for dinner. Just brilliant. But what I'm showing you here is that George's dog is in this scene. And I had to actually lighten this photo up because it's so dark you can't really see the dog. But you can see the hind legs there. He's facing this way. He's facing to the right. But don't take my word for it. Watch this scene and listen for this dog barking through the entire scene. I mean, it's meant to be a bit of a ruckus, but the dog joins in for sure. So much so that Jimmy Stewart, or George, however you want to think of it, actually has to turn around during this scene and tell the dog to shut up. And I just love this because, I mean, Jimmy Stewart saved the scene. He really wanted the dog to shut up. That wasn't on cue, obviously, and he just turned around casually and kept on going with the scene. Okay, now we're at the graduation dance, and they call. So this is one of a handful of on-location scenes. It's in an actual gym. It's Beverly Hills High School gym. You can go there today. You could watch a basketball game there if you wanted to. And if they had a swim meet, you could see that too. the interesting thing about this particular gym, it looks cavernous on film. You're looking at this going like, that is a massive place. But when you go there, it's really remarkably tiny. It's only got about 6 or 7 rows. A very cozy place. It's built like an airplane hangar. So it's or Quonset hut. It's just got that arched ceiling that makes it look really huge on the silver screen, but particularly in black and white. So Sam Wainwright has this line in here when Marty Hatch wants George to dance with his sister, where he kind of makes fun of Mary Hatch by saying, "Mama wants you, Marty, Mama wants you." And everyone's laughing. I mean, just having a good old laugh about that one. And like, we're kind of laughing too. And like, one day it sort of occurred to me, I'm like, what am I laughing at? Like, what is this? Like, what does that mean? And it turns out that there was supposed to be a setup for that line that got cut from an earlier scene. There was supposed to be a reference to that "Mama wants you, Marty" line. And what it was in the sledding scene, one of the iterations of it was Mary Hatch was going to be out there, young Mary, who we saw in Gower Drugs. She was going to be out there on the sledding scene telling her brother to come home. And she was going to say, "Mama wants you, Marty. Mama wants you." And this was going to be an introduction to the George and Mary dynamic. Well, that got cut. Mary never appears in that scene, young Mary. The problem is, this scene got filmed basically at the beginning of filming, on the premise that the scene that was going to be earlier would have that line. But the sledding scene got filmed all the way at the end. And there was nothing they could do. This is actually a wonderful little vignette here. I mean, it's just great. They let the film go for a little while here. So you've got all of this dialogue with Mr. Partridge, and it's just very well done, and there's no way they're going to redo that, especially because it's an on-location shot. They have a Charleston contest at the graduation dance, and there's Harry Bailey with the trophy. It's a beautiful loving cup. I always wonder what happened to it. Who won? Well, we know who won. George and Mary won, because he's got that loving cup 4 years later, sitting on a cabinet in his office. Okay, here's another presidential nugget. Who's got that one? Hoover. And it's 1932 here. So that checks. This is probably the best shot of the swim gym, which is what they called it, because you could have a basketball game and then remove the floor and have a swim meet. You can see at the top, there's bunting that's hanging over a basketball backboard. And then Harry is next to, he's up there on a stage with a band, about 8 members of a band. And then all of the main actors actually are in this shot. There's George and Mary. There's Violet and Sam. And then Mr. Partridge, the principal, is down here on the left. And here's a shot of the floor opening up. And the interesting thing about this is Violet and Sam, somehow they disappear. They're not in this shot. Okay, so this is a shot of Mickey and Freddie, and Alfalfa's on the left here. These are the two that hatched the plan to open up the gym floor and cause George and Mary to go into the water. And I'm showing this because they actually show him jumping in twice. And the reason is it's a one-taker, as I like to call it. I mean, when you've got 50 people jumping in a pool, you want to take that shot film that scene once. There's no way you're drying off and going back and doing that one again. And that's exactly what happened. They just shot it from a bunch of different angles. And the first one is a little close-up of them jumping in, but then you can see the same two guys jumping in down there. And I'm telling you, this is best described as organized chaos. I mean, kids are jumping on top of each other. And then it looks like the plan is to dive in and then swim under the floor. I'm not sure where you go from there, but just looks like a lot of fun. This is a terrible shot of the actual gym floor. I took it, and I'm embarrassed to say, but it's the best I had on short notice. But it does give you the sense of how small the rows are there. And then the well that they're in is actually still there, but the key system that's used in the film is not functional anymore. Okay, so this is a grumpy neighbor who kind of gets annoyed that George is not kissing Mary. Everyone remember that scene? He's sitting up there reading his newspaper. And I could tell you, this is another presidential tie-in. This headline says, Republican chiefs hail Maine as a sign of Hoover victory. So this is one of three headlines that Capra, real-world headlines that Capra wove into the film that you can spy. Some are harder than others to read. This one was pretty tough, actually. But this ties off. I mean, Maine was seen as a bellwether state, like as Maine goes, so goes the nation, and that's what he's referring to here. It's pretty cool. There's just one problem. That's June 1928. 3 months later, George's dad has died, and he's now at the building alone, and he comes out of the meeting, and Tilly has the same newspaper. Okay? All right, so let's take it one step further. So let's go back to June of 1928. Let's go back to the graduation dance day. Before the dance, Bert and Ernie were in the street, and George ran into him with his new luggage. And here's Bert with Smith wins nomination. Okay, so the neighbor we just saw had the Hoover headline. That's the same day. So what happened is they had the newspapers, but they swapped them. So the neighbor should have had Smith wins nomination. And that, by the way, was a presidential candidate, Al Smith from New York. So he lost to Hoover. This is the silliest anecdote that anybody's ever pointed out to me, that the neighbor has 2 undershirts. I mean, I thought I was, attentive to detail, but somebody shared that with me, and I'll never forget it. It's just funny. The reality is that this was a cold night. It's in the valley out there, and this was a particularly cold night, so it's entirely possible that that was just a way for him to keep a little bit warm. But that's verified that they had a cold spell, and they were filming these scenes at the Encino Ranch late into the night, early hours, after midnight for sure. So you never know. There's never a reference to who the workers are in George's office. But it turns out they're his cousins. You see their nameplates? There's Matilda, and there's Eustace, and you hear those names throughout the film, but there's never anything tying them to the Baileys, except the script. And I think the closing credits actually refer to them too, but you can't figure it out from the film. So that means Peter Bailey has another brother, because they're not Billy's, right? Uncle Billy doesn't have any kids. Interesting. The Bedford Falls Train Depot. Okay, this is another on-location shot, and I didn't know it at first. Took some research, but I do remember looking at this scene going, that is an awfully large train. Like, how did they do that? And it turns out the whole thing is real. Look how far back that goes. Well, here's the depot. It's called the Lamanda Park Depot. It no longer exists. It's located in Pasadena. And Hollywood used a lot of these depots that kind of went up from Los Angeles through Pasadena, including the Pasadena station depot for filming. And Capra picked this one. He could have filmed that depot scene out at the Encino Ranch because they had the ability to do that, but he picked this one, and I'm so glad he did. But here's the direction of the shooting in the film, and then you can match up all of this woodwork in the background of all these little shots that I took here, up in the corner there. And then behind him here, there's all those windows, those boxed windows there. But what's missing from the scene in the film is the actual locomotive that's pulling the cars. And if the film lens had pulled out, that's what you would have seen. It's just parked right there on the side, pulling. It's got the tender. It's got 5 cars behind it. And it must have been quite a scene. So there's another mystery guest here in this scene. An actor, one of the main actors who you can barely tell is there. But here he is, Ernie. That's all you see of him in this scene. And honestly, I still have no idea why he's there. I mean, Uncle Billy and George are there to pick up Harry at the station. So why Harry needs a taxi too, who knows? Maybe Ernie's just, he's a great guy, so maybe he's just showing up because he's excited that Harry's back and to help out. But that's all you see of him right there. George has some travel brochures during this scene. He's talking about employment, like the context of looking at these brochures is employment. Like he wants to go work in Venezuela and the Yukon. But the reality is these are travel brochures. These are actually just like if you want to go on a cruise, like this is the brochure you would have back in the day. And here's a color version of both of them. This is a shot of Violet. This is not a trick question. She actually is coming out of a beauty shop here that is hers, according to the script. It is the florist shop that we saw earlier. And she's got a key in her hand because she just locked up. And then here's Mary. She's got a record, Buffalo Gals, Arthur Black and his orchestra. That's a prop. Arthur Black was actually the assistant director. It's an inside joke. Wonderful guy, amazing. He was Capra's right-hand man. Here is the wedding. And right up in the corner here is the tail of George's dog coming down the stairs. That's our third time. Here's Ernie giving a bottle of champagne that Bert is gifting to Mary and George. The only problem is it's prohibition. Here's a little girl getting in, moving day for the martinis. She's getting into the back seat, and she has won the lottery on who gets to carry the two puppies into the back seat. And she couldn't be more proud. She stares right into the camera because that's what kids do. And so does another one of her fellow young actors. And then Jimmy Stewart and Donna Reed have a bout with this goat after they realize that like there is just massive trouble imminent. And George reacts by lunging, and Mary, Donna Reed, just casually, she's a farm girl from Denison, Iowa. She knows how to handle a goat. She just casually reaches out, grabs that horn. Disaster averted. And then this is the on-location shots for the Martini House. This is actually a post-war housing development, GI Bill driven, and there's about 10 houses that have been built already on either side. Well, one of them is the Martini House, and that's the arrow shows you where it is actually on the street, which means that George Bailey is actually about to take a wrong turn to get to the Martini House right here. And that's what it looks like today. I'm sorry I have to go a little bit faster here. This is the Martini House in the film. And that's what it looks like today. Just a stunning little neighborhood, just beautiful. And here's Marty going over the Remagen Bridge, and this is the tie-in to the next presentation about the end of the war. If you were in the movie theater in 1946 watching this, and they said that Marty was in the war montage helped capture Remagen Bridge, you would be 100% stunned and impressed. I mean, it was quite an accomplishment. The Germans were taking out all of the bridges on the Rhine, so to prevent the Allied troops from getting across the Rhine, and they got all the bridges except for the bridge at Remagen. We captured it. We got troops over the bridge. We got equipment over the bridge, and it shortened the war and saved lives. And Eisenhower called that bridge worth its weight in gold. Here's a picture of that bridge from a different perspective. And there's a little sign on here where they've already put the troops have already proudly put up across the Rhine with dry feet, courtesy of the 9th Armored Division. And that's the long view. And Marty's got a bullet hole in his helmet. And this is Harry on the what ended up being a process picture of the USS Yorktown. He's actually, this is a photo of the actual pilot room that was in that last shot. You can go to the USS Yorktown and go in that room where Harry is shown in Charleston, South Carolina. It's a museum. It's beautiful. And here's another presidential reference to Truman on the front of that newspaper. Getting the Congressional Medal of Honor. Okay, we're going to have to wrap up a little bit short on time, but I got to show you Uncle Bill and his furry friends. I just have to. I mean, he's got a squirrel friend. I mean, like, it's not a good idea to have a squirrel as a pet. It's just not a good idea, but this squirrel's so cute in this scene. But there's all kinds of animals here. There's a dog down here. There's 4 birds. There's mice. There's a monkey. There's an owl. The dog's awesome. It's almost like the dog's acting. I mean, he looks over at Uncle Billy like, "Are you okay?" And the Baileys have a pet, and it's a bird. They also have a portrait of President Lincoln. And here is a map showing where both of those are. So the front door is here. President Lincoln's over here on the left in George's workroom, and the bird cage is down there in the lower right in the dining room. This is Zuzu's nightstand, and she's got a toy here, and I ID'd this toy. I wish we had a little more time. Here he is again. He's a drummer boy. And it turns out he's real. It's a Japanese toy manufacturer. And he's a wind-up toy. And there's a shot of him from the film. So I think we're running a little bit tight on time. I've got more pieces to the puzzle, but I'd be happy to show it to anybody if they wanted to stick around later and walk you through the rest of it. But I can't thank you enough for spending some time with me today and learning a little bit more about the film. If you have any questions, let me know. I'll be around the rest of the afternoon. Thank you so much.